evening, everyone. How are we all doing?
Hello. Good evening.
Hello.
Hi there.
How are you doing, Angela? You okay?
Yeah, we're hanging there. Kids.
Nick, how are you?
Doing great. Been hanging in there for the most part, but yeah, I've been doing very well.
Good. That's what I like to hear. So, Nick, I've been wanting to speak to you for quite a while now.
Everybody pretty much wants to talk to me nowadays, so I'm
There is absolutely nothing wrong with being in demand. I would take that as a compliment. So, Nick, we first got talking quite a while ago now over Facebook, didn't we? In regards to the paranormal in general. So before we start delving into our passion for the paranormal, can you just tell us what first got you interested in the paranormal?
Well, it actually started when I was a much younger kid. Than usual, back in the late '90s, I was one of the fortunate kids back then to watch the X-Files in those days, which was at that time was still relatively brand new. And
Absolutely.
Yeah, in some way, yes. But during that period of time, I didn't really quite believe in it at first, but I still enjoyed the show because it dealt with a lot of that, of that subject. It scared the hell out of me, of course. But I think, but then as time went by, this is kind of like the origins, I guess you can kind of say. Then the early 2000s, we started watching the show that was called Scariest Places on Earth, which it kind of started drawing me I still wasn't quite, didn't really quite believe it first. We just kind of watched it first, just kind of like our annual Halloween show that we had. But the show that I think that got me out of everything was when I was about 12 years old, when I just happened to be flipping through the channels, and there was a show that was, it's another show I'm sure you guys are all familiar with, Most Haunted. And I think from that day forward, it got me to what I've been ever since.
At this point, I'm just going to jump in and say other TV shows are available.
Yeah. I mean, this was back in the day, like when the Travel Channel would show this kind of stuff like every Friday night. Now they're just doing it like crazy. You don't even see these, older documentaries anymore.
Well, did you ever see Ghost Watch over in the States?
I think I've seen, it's been a while. There's just so many of them. It's like I've already kind of lost track, but I probably have seen it.
Well, no, you're right. I agree with what you're saying. It is a case of, these TV shows do drag us into our fascination of the paranormal to begin with. So you started off with X-Files and then it moved on to Most Haunted. So at what point did you start investigating yourself?
Well, I started investigating by around, honestly, when I was about 14 years old. Although the investigations that we did, they were just part-time investigations, not like full-time. And, we would get a few like, EVPs here and there, but we never really got like a lot of the activity like most investigators would want to look for. But the one event that really started off, though, was a few years later when I was 17 years old. And I had the opportunity to investigate Waverly Hills Sanatorium in Louisville, Kentucky, which that was my first full night investigation. That was 10 years ago. It actually was. I'm almost to the 10-year anniversary of that investigation, and man, it's crazy how fast time goes by so quickly. But it's
mental.
That one investigation out of everything. I mean, there was just. See, I think prior to that, I'd be watching all these shows and going on these part-time investigations, but in order for me to, become kind of like a full believer, is that I had to have like a real experience, and that's when Waverly Hills came to mind. So we actually had to lie about my age when we got in. You had to be 18 or older, but I was still able to pass off. They just didn't know I was 17 at the time. So that's what pretty much made me of who I am now, especially from that one investigation.
So what happened on that one investigation that really did it for you?
It was actually right around the beginning of the investigation. Actually, two events in particular. There was a lot of stories, but these are the two main ones. We went up to the 4th floor, which they say is said to be the most active floor of the sanatorium, and we had a guide with us by the name of Mike L. Flickner. He's still an investigator now, but he doesn't work there anymore. And he told us that it's best if we turn off the lights, because we had flashlights on. So we shut the flashlights off, and no sooner after that, we started seeing all these different figures like going all different directions. Shadow people, as they always describe it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it really was like watching like a silent horror film. You know, some were going to the right, some were going to the left, some were coming towards us and away from us. And I was fortunate enough to have, well, we used an old-fashioned video camera, so I was able to capture a lot of this. And even 10 years later, we have not been able to view that full footage, but I think we captured something incredible. But you can hear my reaction from it. It was unbelievable. So, and then the second event was where my dad, he was trying to get the camera to, I guess, get back to filming, and all of a sudden, there was this message that popped up that my dad has never really seen before. The camera, I can't quite remember. It was like low battery or something like that. And we've had this camera at the time. He's used this camera for like 20, 25 years. It's an old camera.
So your dad would be very aware of the normal mechanics of the camcorder.
Yes, absolutely. But it just went off, and then when we got back to the main lobby area, the safe house, as they call it, the camera was back to its normal self. And my dad, even to this day, he still can't explain what happened with the camera.
Have you been back since, Nick?
Unfortunately not, but I've been trying to go back ever since. I actually recently was speaking to, I know you guys probably know Brent and Emma. They said that they were going to be going to Waverly next year, and is
that Brent and Emma from Be Paranormal here in the UK?
That's correct, yeah.
Well, I'm sure they will be watching. If they are not watching now, if they are coming over and doing Waverly Hills, they are not going without me.
Trust me, you won't be disappointed. I mean,
see, that is one place that really, really interests me, because there is so many stories on that one location alone, and that is dating back hundreds of years.
Oh, yeah. The only warning I just have for you guys is the time we went, because this was obviously around August. It is super hot in that place during the summer. So definitely dress lightly if you guys go during the summer.
Nick, honestly, you've never seen anything like it. When I go on an investigation, when you come over to because we've said this like so many times, we are going to come over and, you know, you are going to get over here at some point. So at some point we are all going to meet up, and you will see for yourself, Nick, when I am on an investigation, there is one thing that everybody needs to know, and that is that it doesn't matter where we are, the time of year, I become freezing to the extent where I will gladly steal everybody's clothing just to keep warm. In fact, there was one time on an investigation, and Dave actually got it on video, and he made it look like I was doing some sort of striptease and put it out there on Facebook, because I was doing like trans mediumship with a medium that's quite well known here in the UK, Gary Fields, and he was using me to do his trans mediumship, and I got so hot, and I was just like taking all these layers off, and Dave was like, "Gemma's stripping. I'm going to film this," because it is so unheard of for me to be taking off items of clothing and not putting them on. So you will see that is something that it does happen. I do steal people's clothing. So Waverly Hills was a big thing for you then, Nick. So what progressed it further? Because it's not just the ghosts that you're interested in, is it? It's not just the ghost side of the paranormal.
Yeah, it's not just only that. I mean, it was right after, when I was actually even before Waverly and these part-time investigations, about a year after I started studying the paranormal at age 12, ufology, cryptozoology, a lot of those other subjects, they weren't far behind. And I actually have I have an image to show, but I also have a separate story. But a few years after I started studying that, I actually had a UFO encounter myself. It was brief, but it was definitely the one event that got me more into about UFOs from that point forward. It was about January of 2008. I was about 14, going on about 15 years old by then. And I was just doing my homework in my dad's office upstairs, just like any kid would back then. And something just compelled me to look outside. And I look out, it's nighttime, of course. And I look out and I see these lights that occur, which of course, as everyone says, first I thought it was some type of aircraft. And I noticed then that there were, as I can remember, it was 6 red lights all in a line. And I thought to myself, wait a second, if this was a plane, we would have seen more lights on its sides, you know, like sticking out of its arms. But then as it continued moving forwards, I saw 3 white lights on top. I can remember it was very bright. It had the classic flying saucer-like shape to it. And this was probably about no more than maybe at least under 1,000 feet in the air. If this was a plane, it would have been like loud as hell. I don't remember any sound from it, and it just moved silently through the night sky, and then afterwards it just disappeared. And I just thought to myself, did I just literally see a UFO? And I ran down to my parents to tell them. Of course, they weren't paying attention much, but it got me so curious and wondering, did anybody else see this? Because I could have not been the only one to have seen this, you know, this UFO supposedly. So I still remember that after that, I started telling the story repeatedly to a number of friends of mine who were into this kind of stuff. So that's what really even drew me further in.
So, I mean, you tend to get a lot more UFO reportings over stateside than what you do here in the UK. So it's not something that's reported very often here. We do get reportings, don't get me wrong, but it's not as often or as recurrent as it is over in the States. So have you seen the same UFO shape in the same place since that, Nick, or was that just a one-off?
Surprisingly, I haven't, but I have seen, you know, reports of similar, you know, sightings like that. I mean, the best one I could think of, and this was before even mine, was probably the most notorious of, I guess you kind of say, the light phenomenon is the Phoenix lights that occurred in Phoenix, Arizona back in 1997. And it looked amazingly similar to what I saw. And yes, it is true. The U.S. and Canada do get a lot of reports, but I think the one country that has the most, honestly, is Mexico. Their reports are crazy over there. They're still getting them to this day.
Yeah, massively. I mean, one of the biggest reports that that I can actually think of straight to mind would be the Mothman, because with the Mothman prophecy alone, you know, we're not just talking UFOs, we're not just talking ghosts, but there was cryptozoology in there as well. That, to me, that one case is fascinating because it's everything. It is everything from the paranormal all rolled into one reporting, and it went on for, what was it, about 18, 19 months?
At least for Point Pleasant, it actually started a little bit in late, most people don't know this, but it actually started briefly in late 1965, but went on between then up till about early 1968 after the Silver Bridge collapse of 67.
Yeah. I mean, that bridge was huge, wasn't it? But the interesting thing about that is I've planned ahead today. Look, everybody, don't everybody faint all at once, but I've planned ahead. And because I knew we was going to be mentioning Mothman, I got the book ready, look. I got the book out. Put it on the shelf. So I'm not sat here tonight going, where is it? Do you know, I still to this day have not seen the movie. Really, I'm more of a reader. Like, I love reading, but I mean, this book it's a book, and it reads like a novel. But John Keel, who is the author, actually investigated the Mothman prophecy. So it's basically a rundown of what happened during his investigation. And when I said it weren't just because in that case, I mean, we've got UFOs, we've got the Mothman. Which was like a dark, I'm so sorry if anybody just heard that notification coming through. It was like the Mothman shape figure being seen. But on top of that, there was MIBs as well, wasn't there? There was Men in Black.
It was practically everything that you could think of that occurred out in Point Pleasant. I mean, because everybody sometimes just only focuses on, you know, the Mothman, but there was other types of phenomena that was going like crazy throughout Point Pleasant. especially with the Men in Black. So
The Men in Black was phenomenal.
I actually recently wrote I'm still writing it to this day. I've been writing this whole document of almost every reported sighting of the Mothman that I could find, as well as the phenomenon that followed, like the Men in Black, the UFOs. I mean, this is something I've been wanting to print out, for a while. It's about like a 60-page document, but every time I'm just about done, we get a new report in, because now all of a sudden here in Chicago, Illinois, we've been getting reports of this, what we call the Chicago Phantom, but it's practically the same thing.
You see, I see that somewhere on Facebook. I don't know if you'd shared it on your group, Nick, but I had seen a post about that. And it intrigues me, because the way it was described to me was exactly that. It was Mothman. So do you think that could be linked somehow? Oh,
I definitely believe so. I mean, the other thing, too, about the Mothman, and this is what they always say with the connection with the Silver Bridge collapse, is that it's said to be a forerunner of doom. And we're starting to think, I mean, I know this may sound a little far-fetched, but it's like we started thinking, what if all these reports that we've been getting in Chicago, as well as other parts of the country, may have been a forerunner to, like, COVID-19, because it always appears right before a massive amount of deaths occur. We can't prove for sure, but a lot of us in Chicago are starting to think that.
But you see, this is the thing with the paranormal, isn't it? And we've said this before, Nick, in our private conversations. I mean, I know I can 100% say I believe that the paranormal and all its umbrella terms are all interlinked somehow. I don't know how. I would love to say I had the magic cure and I could tell everybody exactly what the paranormal is, but unfortunately I can't. I am just a mere mortal, but I do believe that they are all interlinked somewhere. If you go back through the cases, right from as early as you can find, your alpha case, there is usually some form of a UFO. There is usually some form of crypto in there. And there is also some sort of poltergeist activity in the same area that is having the outbreak, if you want, with want of a better word. And then, like you say, there is usually something like where was it with the tsunami? Because there were reports there about paranormal activity happening, and then there was a tsunami.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I know exactly what it is. I can't remember exactly which one that was, but I definitely know which one you're talking about, though. That it definitely was linked to to several pieces of activity that occurred. I can't remember which one that was. So
see, there's so many where it seems like, is it coincidence?
It could be, because again, I can't say for sure, but I think it could be otherwise. In fact, I just actually wanted to go back just really quickly about the Mothman reports. People may find this hard to believe, but not every report that we've gotten that's in connection with a disaster have people actually experienced this thing in reality. Some people have had bizarre nightmares and stuff, and people may find this a little bit hard to believe, but I was actually one of them, because last year my dad and I were driving over to see my aunt, and we were driving near the O'Hare Airport near the Chicago area. And that was actually where one of the most recent reports of the Mothman in Chicago had been reported. And although nothing actually happened when we were going back and forth, later at night when I got home and went to sleep, I had this very bizarre, probably one of the most bizarre dreams I've ever had in my life. I still can't exactly describe what happens, but I see practically what they all describe as the Mothman. And while the memory was still fresh, I actually made a drawing out of it while I still remember. This is the actual drawing I made. I don't know if you can see it. I know it's
oh my God. Go back a little bit, Nick. Pull it back.
That's it.
Stay there. Perfect. Oh my God. And that came to you from a dream?
It was. I haven't had a dream like that since, but I still think to this day that it was some kind of message. Of course, I didn't quite understand it. I actually posted saying, was this supposed to be some kind of message? I have no idea. And I do know that this is something I've never had happen before. And at the time, I thought what it was trying to tell me or communicate with me, if it had something to do with some disaster, I didn't really. At the time, I said, I don't know if I want to know about it. Now, however, you folks can think about it.
Nick, have you spoken to many people in regards to abductions?
Honestly, I haven't really been able to. I'm honestly surprised I haven't really came across a lot of actual individuals sitting down for an interview, tell them about, people who've claimed they've been abducted or have had some kind of, visitation that's gone on with them at night. So I have yet to have, actually meet someone who's done something. Who's been through something like that. But I'm definitely aware of the stories, though. Truly.
You see, there's so much going around, and especially at the moment, especially in regards to UFOs, I have seen so much recently over the last 6 months. Roughly about 6 months, and the majority of it is all stateside. I've seen very little here at the moment. There's been the odd one or two. I've spoken to somebody in my local area who believes that she gets abducted on a regular basis, and she's missing massive time gaps.
Oh yeah, it's very rare, but there are a few individuals who've been abducted more than once. I know, of course, they believe that everything went by so quickly when they were returned, but they don't realize that they may have been gone for a couple days. I think the best one I could think of is the Travis Walton case that occurred back in 1975 when he was only in his early 20s, about 22 years old at that time, and they were going. He and his construction company was going down the road, and they saw this light, and Travis Walton, eventually would be abducted. And he thought originally after this whole entire procedure, I guess you may call it, when they transfer him back, he thought it was the same night, only for him to find out he was gone for an entire week and had no clue that everybody was looking for him. Because originally they thought he was dead because his other worker friends, thought that they were responsible for his murder, and that they put his body somewhere in an area that nobody could find him. But no, he showed up alive and well, but was completely unaware of what was happening back on Earth.
Completely missing a week of his life.
Yeah, it was there was everybody that was just in a whole state of panic because they had no idea where he was. It really was kind of the true message that he kind of disappeared off the face of the earth for a week. Yeah, I think it was a week, I believe.
Yeah, about a week.
All their stories match.
Say that again, Angela.
All their stories matched and everything of the when they were questioned about it. Where he was, whatever.
But you see, it's not very often that especially because there's been cases where two people have been abducted together, but yet neither can recall seeing each other.
I was just watching. While I was at work, I was listening to a documentary about UFOs earlier, and they were talking about that. In fact, so yeah, it's an old documentary series that aired on National Geographic. I don't know if you guys remember the television series Is It Real? You guys remember that one? Or it wasn't as popular compared to other shows, but they went on different subjects. It wasn't just
what's it called? Is it real?
Is it real? Yeah, with the question mark at the end. So, but they didn't just revolve around just paranormal stuff. They revolved about other stuff. But one of their episodes was about UFOs and alien abductions, and they interviewed a woman who she didn't say exactly when this occurred, but she said that she was abducted one night. She saw these two small figures and was transferred to a waiting area. And whilst I guess you can kind of say she was kind of waiting to be tested, there was a few other people that she's never seen before that were just kind of out of it. And when she would later explain it to us, like a parapsychologist, I think his answer was, well, they're probably looking at you the same way too. So that's why you never even hear that while they're on these ships or crafts, they never seem to have the ability to speak to each other. Like, who are you? Where'd you come from? Or, you cannot have a simple conversation because
communication's lacking.
Yeah, you're kind of like a combination of a trance and in shock. You just don't know exactly how to cope with the situation.
It's crazy. See, you're not just into the paranormal as an umbrella term either, are you, Nick? I only learned this recently, but you're also a storm chaser, aren't you?
That's correct. Part-time storm chaser, but yes, I certainly am. I've actually been doing it longer than I have with the paranormal. I mean, since I was about one. It's been around. That's been something that's been with me forever.
You've been chasing storms since you was about one. I've been hiding from them since I was about one.
Well, fascinated with them, not actually chasing them.
So how does the storm chasing come about? And have you ever noticed like an increase in paranormal activity around a storm? Because let's face it, a lot of people go off the theory that the paranormal is caused by increase of EMF. So surely a storm, which is electrical, would be increasing the EMF.
Oh yeah, that actually just happened with us last year at a Paracon we had. That was probably the best example of storms. It's fascinating to think that even storms themselves have a connection with it, because actually a few years ago on the Weather Channel they made a short-lived, but they're kind of like their first paranormal show, which was called I think it was called American Supernatural. No, I think American Supernatural. I might have gotten the title wrong, but it was the first series known to have weather and the paranormal mixed together, as well as historical disasters that had something to do with a historical location. But going back to like such an event like that was last year. We were down in Alton, Illinois, which is regarded as one of the most haunted small towns in America, and it's located right next to the Mississippi River. We had something called the Haunted Road Media Paracon, which we usually have almost this would have been our third year, but sadly with COVID, it's been canceled. But we were completely unaware that there was this huge storm that was coming by us. And I just had this, even when it finally showed up, there was just something strange about this storm. I mean, my first thought is, well, it looks like we're just going to get an ordinary thunderstorm. The difference was, however, was the sky was very, very dark, kind of a gray-green color. And as it started moving forward to us, being the storm chaser I am, my phone in my hand, I started, grabbed my phone, I started filming it. And for a brief second, you could see in part of the video where you actually see a brief funnel cloud start forming. So for maybe at least about 2-3 minutes, we actually had a tornado that occurred. On the other side, it was actually in Missouri because it's right next to the Mississippi River. The lightning, though, was unbelievable. And even after the storm finally moved on, we could still see it in the distance out in Missouri. And probably for the next 2-3 hours, not only was this lightning going nuts, but there was just loads of activity. And at one point, we were on when I finally kind of had the chance of going back in, because I was so excited by the storm. Don't get me wrong. This was one of the best ones I've seen in a long time. I just couldn't turn away from it. But when we started doing the investigation, we were on the top floor of the hotel. Now, first off, I just want to say the hotel that we were at, it's called the Mineral Springs Hotel. It's no longer actually in use as an actual hotel. It's kind of like a mini mall, but they have it open for investigations. So we're on the top floor, and we're communicating with what we believed to be was the spirit of a little girl who I think was, she was obviously someone who visited the hotel back probably over 100 years ago. And we just had, the hair was starting to stand up on the back of our necks, and then it's like we all just kind of stood silent. We turned off the flashlights, and we couldn't quite see it at first, but we started seeing what looked like a shadow. There was a door right at the end of the hallway. On the other side was the only source of light that was going on. The rest of the hallway was pitch black, but kind of like underneath the slit of the door, we started seeing what looked like little shoes start forming, like going back and forth. Then all of a sudden it started damn, I can't remember the word I'm thinking of. We started seeing the shape of a short gown or some type of long dress, and boom, right after that, we started seeing a full apparition of a little girl. And it was, the weirdest part was, we were just so in awe of what we were seeing that we had cameras in our hands, and none of us took a photograph. We were just all stunned of what we were seeing. And it literally looked like a scene out of a silent movie. Her clothes looked like she was probably from late 1910s, 1920s. And she was there for, I mean, it felt like an eternity, but I think she was actually only there for probably about a good, honestly, 3 minutes, maybe more. I can't quite recall. But it was, I think, had this storm not occur, I don't think we would have ever gotten that type of activity.
See, this is it. I mean, do you think that people go into, especially when it comes to like ghost hunts or ghost walks, whatever you want to call them these days, do you think that people go in with a pre-existing expectation of what they're going to get out of the night because of things that they've seen elsewhere?
A few of them do. Unfortunately, we've had our other, guests that are disappointed when nothing happens. But, we always tell them that's kind of the expectation too. There's not always a guarantee that something is going to happen. We had a tour last year that I was a part of, and we heard these people in the back saying, "Seriously, we paid our money for this." I just really wanted to just turn around and say, you know what? If you didn't like this, then you shouldn't have come in the first place. We told you nothing. There was no guarantee.
I wouldn't have been able to help myself. I would have actually said exactly that. Or my favourite is, especially with members of the public, because let's face it, we have to be polite. So I simply say something along the lines of, "What was you expecting? A pint and a selfie?"
Exactly. That's honestly, now that you say that, I'm surprised I didn't think of something like that back then.
Oh, honestly, I say it all the time to anybody that's like, "Well, is this it? Is this all we're going to get?" I'm like, well, we're not going to fake activity happening just because you want to see it. If you want to see it, you're going to see it because it's real, not because it's staged. And what do you want me to do? Call up my friend Fred and ask him to come over, pop to the pub for a pint and a selfie with you?
Well, they also have to realize, even if we don't get a lot of activity, we've all heard, even if it's just one activity, it's better than nothing. So, whenever I go on an investigation, wherever it is, if I get at least one activity, I'm happy. If I get
a lot of it,
yeah. Sorry,
a lot of it can be subtle, and people around aren't actually realizing what's happening because they're not paying attention, because they're sat waiting for this big wonderful thing to happen that's probably never going to happen.
Exactly. I mean, it's just it's hard to always try to tell people, especially newcomers, the truth about what the expectations are for paranormal investigation. So we've been getting a lot of new recruits lately for my crew. So, we've been telling them exactly well over ahead of time, so they're aware, so they're not disappointed. It's like a sports game. If it doesn't happen the first time, we'll just try again next time.
Absolutely, yeah. Don't you think that paranormal investigating is pretty similar to fishing?
I never thought of that.
You could sit there for hours and get nothing.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I have to admit, I never even thought of a question like that. Yeah, it pretty much, I guess you can kind of say it is. It really is.
Yeah. Only you don't use a magnet to catch a ghost.
No. Oh, no, it is though. It's like fishing, isn't it? You literally sit there just waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. Oh, and then you get these people. I love these people. So you're on an investigation and you get something happen. So I don't know. You caught an EVP. Okay, so it's wonderful. So you've got an EVP. It's great, absolutely great. But then when the people are telling the story, it's like, and we got this EVP, and then this EVP gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, just like the fish that you caught that started off this big, but then ends up growing as you go along. It's hilarious. I love it.
that's kind of how it was when I was, learning about investigations, especially when I was starting to go at 14. It's like, it didn't start off just like that, just like crazy. It's like, much like, with me being in the position of, with these other paranormal brothers and sisters we got, I basically was kind of slowly rising through the ranks to get there. But although at the same time, there were times that I rose to the ranks relatively quickly. Another thing I should mention was during my high school years, I formed a paranormal club in high school. And to this day, it's still running. I formed it back in 2007, and about 13, 14 years later, it's still going strong.
Nick, was you still in school in 2007?
That was when I started high school, 2007.
Oh my God. Make me feel old now.
Where did I put that gin?
I'll be a ghost soon.
We're going to be visiting you, Nick, because you're still a spring chicken, I tell ya.
I'm 27 years old, so that kind of does explain.
I make it sound like I'm like loads older than I actually am, don't I? I'm so sorry. I'm not that old. S4 Paranormal have just put in the chat room, actually, and I think they've got a very good point there. Ask yourself why you want to do it. This is the paranormal, obviously. What's your agenda? What aspects of the paranormal you're exploring, and find a team with more than 5 years to work with that fits those goals. Maybe not so much for 5 years, because I know some people that have only just started teams, but yet they've been in the paranormal for 15, 20 years. But I completely agree with what S4 Paranormal Radio has just said, because you've got to be in this field for the right reasons.
Yeah, I mean, some of those questions, I'm still trying to even ask myself. I mean, I can answer a couple of them, but I guess probably the reason why I want to do it is that I guess you're basically not only looking for proof, but experience stuff that, I mean, of course, yes, our paranormal community has grown over the years. I mean, we're still growing to this day, but that's still kind of it's still a small portion of most people. You're going out and experience stuff that not too many people, especially when it comes to much more intense investigations, are willing to experience. So I think that's one way to answer part of it. The agenda is, oh man, honestly, that's a question I've been going over for years. That's one of those questions I've been going for years. And I think really what aspect of it is probably just like a lot of us, just kind of letting people know that this does exist. It's, you look at like 50, 60 years ago, not too many people were very much into it, but it's like now that we've been seeing, in addition to so many shows and all these groups and everybody coming in, it's like times have changed. I think it's time to start.
I see, and I question this all the time, and I find myself going round in circles with this one, because was it that people wasn't interested, or was it something that was just kept behind closed doors because it was such a taboo subject? Because let's not forget, I mean, let's look at Ouija boards. That was first invented in 19 whatever as a parlor game.
Yeah. Wait, what was that? I'm sorry, you kind of cut off there. What were you saying?
Did I? I'm sorry. I could hear my mic playing up, so I was fiddling. I will get a new mic, everybody. I'm so sorry. I said, is it a case of that the paranormal wasn't as involved 60 years ago, or was it that it was just kept behind closed doors because it was such a taboo subject?
I think it was a combination of both. Because I mean, there were a few of them back then, but I think a lot of them just was kind of, kept behind closed doors, because I think not too many people really believed in the subject. I mean, perhaps as a film expert myself, I think the one event that, one movie actually that I think that may have started, probably, no doubt in my mind, the UK, was back in 1963 when the movie The Haunting came out. And that was pretty much one of the first haunted house films that not only was filmed at an actual haunted location at Eddington Park, but was also, made to be a serious film compared to other haunted house films, which, movies before then, just had a sense of humor in them. This was kind of the first that actually had kind of like portraying like a real paranormal group going in, investigating, whatever people had, investigators back in the 60s had. And most people don't realize this, but some of the things that they experienced in that film was not always done by the crew. Like the reactions that you sometimes see, I recently read that, the two actresses in the film, when they came across Eddington Park and they saw what the building actually looked like, they described about how scary it looked. It just was a very intimidating structure to it.
Yeah, massively. Can I ask you? I'm sorry, my mic's playing up. Go on,
I was just reading what Bill put on that he started in 1978. I was only 8 years old then, so it might make him feel a bit older than me.
Bill, you should never have put that, because now Dave's going to be thinking he's young, and we can't have that.
Bill, I know him very well, but I've heard him talk about that previously. He started back in 1978. Sadly, I wasn't around then.
No, you wasn't even a twinkle in your mother's eyes then, Nick, was you? Honestly. See,
you might have been a spirit then.
Probably. I was a spirit until 1993.
Oh God, honestly. I mean, when you think of the amount of years that we spend thrust into this paranormal minefield, because let's face it, that's exactly what it is. It's a minefield, because one day you can wake up and think one thing, but then something will happen and it will completely change your whole overview. Can I ask though, Nick, what are your opinions on telepathy in the paranormal?
Well, surprisingly, that's one I don't really, not necessarily I don't really talk about very often. I just haven't really been able to, because again, I've just been I've been such involved with so many of the subjects. I mean, I try my best to keep up with everything up to date, but with telepathy,
it's impossible to keep up with everything. It really is. Trust me, I've tried.
That's kind of why I make these documents, so to keep track. I'm already behind on exactly.
Honestly, I have loads of books that are just full of my ramblings about the paranormal. It's just, they're everywhere. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but my view of telepathy, is I think it does play kind of a crucial role, because I mean, of course, we always want to be careful exactly who. It's hard to prove who exactly, I guess you kind of say, is diagnosed with it, because there's you get a lot of those others out there who claim that they have, and in reality, they're just doing it either for the show, or they may have something else that has no connection to it whatsoever. But see, I think in addition to telepathy, it's for all psychic abilities. If someone asks me, like, would I consider myself a psychic or something? My answer I've always said is, we are all psychic in one way or another. Not 100% like some people do have it, but we have it in some way. In telepathy, I'd probably say the same exact way for it.
I can sniff out gin from about 10 miles, to be fair. Yeah.
I think we have, I think we all have it. I guess it's like DNA, DNA, it's not this, the appearance of it does not always look the same, except for maybe twins, for example. So I think we all have it, but it plays differently for each of us. I've had somewhat kind of more of a psychic connection of more or less looking into being able to kind of see the history aspects of historical locations. Like if I'm able to touch a piece of limestone or something that's like original to the structure, I'm able to get like images of the past of what happened. They're not always very clear, but it's like I'm able to get brief images of what I'm seeing.
But you see, this is something else that's interesting. It's really interesting that you just mentioned limestone. But when you think of like ley lines and limestone and that, again, all of those just do seem to increase the paranormal activity around that specific area. So that's interesting that you just said that, Nick, to be fair.
Well, another example for that is when I mentioned about Alton, Illinois. Most of the locations that are said to be haunted are built on the limestone. In fact, it's all connected to one of the locations, which was the Alton Prison, which was the very first state prison here in Illinois. And about 1865, latter part of 1865, the prison actually closed. Some of the bricks and parts of the building were eventually used for other parts of the town. They were used for foundations. They were used for walls. You can still see evidence of that if you ever go down through the town of Alton. It's like you can see on the sides of the streets where these buildings are standing. So, you know, that limestone, of course, carrying the energy from whatever occurred there originally, has now been transferred to where they built this location. So, yes, it plays a huge role.
S4 Paranormal Radio have just said missing 411 cases are also centred around granite and limestone and quartz. Quartz is another one that's quite heavily involved in the paranormal field as well. I did spend a short period last year looking into stones and rocks and just to see if I could find some sort of a link. But again, as we said earlier, you know, it is like a minefield, and you go down too many rabbit holes, you're never going to come out again. Nobody is going to know everything about the whole subject of the paranormal as an umbrella term. So, you know, I'm thankful that I can dip my toes in several different areas and not just focus on one, because I feel if you just focus on one, you're missing out on so much important information that could all be related to your favorite area. So what's your thoughts on mixing the paranormal as an umbrella?
Honestly, I mean, despite being different subjects, I think they all revolve around kind of the same thing. So that's just my opinion. Me too,
definitely. Sorry, I'm just reading the comments there.
Yeah, I've actually been reading the comments too. So originally I was gonna turn on my video of our show so I can see, but I thought, I'm seeing them right here. It doesn't matter.
Some of them pop up on the side of my screen, and then the other times they come up, I have to, because I have my mobile on so I can see all the comments. So when it looks like I'm being really ignorant, I'm not. I'm just reading the comments to see if there's any questions that I'm missing. I don't want to miss anybody's questions. George actually said, we have all said, I have this gut feeling not to, then you do. You should listen to your gut. Now, I completely agree with that, because I actually really think you should just go with your gut instinct on things all the time.
Oh, yeah. George, I hate with chat, you can't always see everybody's name, so I didn't realize that was George who was saying that, but glad he's tuning in for starters. Yes. He makes a good... I'm glad I did make a good point, obviously. So, yeah.
High five to Nick, everyone.
So I was going to ask you, Nick, when you're doing the investigations, what gadgets do you take with you?
Oh, like tool-wise, or like you nail meters and stuff like that, and
paranormal equipment.
I pretty much got almost everything. But I, of course, with the amount of stuff I have, I keep it all in a toolbox. I can't always get to everything, but a lot of times some of the most common tools I use, and I've said this previously on a few other shows, I always prefer using a lot of the older fashioned tools like dowsing rods, crystals, pendulums. And of course, I know there's a lot of people out there that use Ouija boards, but I know there's people who say that that they're safe to use. I just don't want to risk it, honestly. So I would basically say, if someone asked me if I wanted to use an Ouija board, I'd be like, oh no, I'm good. I just like to watch.
I think that one on its own is still a taboo subject, because so many people are still terrified of Ouija boards. And I know when I spoke to Karen from the Talking Board Society, I had a really interesting chat with Karen in regards to the Ouija boards, because obviously they specialise in them. So, she had some stories to tell about that, and it fascinated me. I mean, touch wood, I've never had a bad experience. But then, am I just lucky? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, of course, not everyone's always, interested with the Ouija board. Of course, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. But I just think it's just not worth the risk for me, whether it is safe or not. Although I should be honest, though, I do have one, but not because of a decoration or anything. It was originally a birthday gift from my sister back when she was 10 years old, so about 20 years ago now. And of course, back then, none of us knew what an Ouija board was, but I don't really recall her ever using it.
See, I've got a slate one that will never be used because it's not to be used. I see it and I thought it was beautiful, so I bought it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I've kept this one with me ever since. Really not necessary for decoration, just kind of like just keeping it from falling in the wrong hands, if you will.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Again, I know some people. I can see right now some people are saying it's just simply tools of communication, but I've heard a few horror stories involved in that. It doesn't always, even if it's true, it doesn't always, it not always ends well, I guess you can say.
But again, I think this is all going back to the fear factor of paranormal investigation, because fear is a massive contributing factor to the paranormal. The more scared you are, the more heightened your senses are, and then the worse things seem to be. So, it has a knock-on effect. So you have to take that into consideration. But then let's face it, we can't stay calm all the time.
Right. Well, and not to mention the other tools I already had. Even if I brought it with me, there's no guarantee that I'm even going to have time to use it because I'm focusing with everything else.
So yeah, let's face it, time does just run away when you're on an investigation. It just goes too quick.
Yeah, it's almost like for the Alton investigation, we were probably doing this for about 4 hours, maybe 5 hours. We went till about 2-3 o'clock in the morning at least. And to me, it just felt like it was just like an entire hour that we went through it. I was like, and I look at my clock, I'm like, what? It's already like 2:30 a.m. already. So
yeah, was it Hat Green, Dave, that we went to, and we was like that?
Yeah, went really quick, didn't it?
Yeah. So some investigations, it's like you sat there for a month, and other investigations, just in the blink of an eye, it's gone. It's like, what do you mean we've got to pack up? We've only just unpacked.
Yeah, I think it's just the adrenaline rush that you get when you're on an investigation. You feel the adrenaline rush, you get an excitement. It's just like it's like that kind of situation where I'm about to go on something. I'm going to have kind of like a lot of fun, excitement, scariness, if you will. And before you know it, it's like boom, right in the snap of a finger. It's gone before it even got started.
So, Nick, I've got a question for you that I've been asking everybody just recently. Have you got any? I'm going to use the word rituals with one because I can't think of a better word. But have you got any rituals that you do before an investigation? So I have a playlist that I like to play on my drive to the investigation, and then just before I go in, I completely zone out and woosa. So I clear myself of anything that's going on in my head. So have you got any rituals that you like to do?
Not right now. But we do, oftentimes before we go to investigations, there are times that sometimes we do say a quick prayer. We bring holy water with us, just especially if we're dealing with something a lot more aggressive. So we haven't really came up with something like that, but we do a few blessings and prayers before we get started, and on some occasions afterwards as well.
So that is like your thing that you do. See, everybody has something, and it always fascinates me. Like, Dave, you have time to yourself, don't you, before going on an investigation, and then it all starts from there. Angela, do you do anything? Do you have anything that you do before an investigation?
I say, protection prayers before going in, and douse myself with holy water, and all of them we all do, and then.
I'm so sorry. I'm sat here laughing. I am so sorry, everybody. Chrissy is one of our team members.
I just read that.
She's just put in the chat room. Gemma Lee draw is holy water is gin. Sorry, Angela, you were saying.
That's funny.
That's okay. Yeah. So before we leave, we do the same thing to make sure well, hopefully that nothing follows us. And I haven't done an investigation for a long time now with the COVID thing and everything like that too. So I haven't really got out yet or done anything. So I'm scared of the stupid COVID more than I am of ghosts. You know, crazy. So I don't know, but here, living here, I constantly do it. It's
I was just going to say, you don't have to go out, do you? Because everything comes
Yeah,
to you, so
you're right.
you don't
Yeah.
have to go anywhere. It's delivered on a silver platter.
Yes, we and just this morning I was on the phone with Dave, and Dominic came in and he said this thing that's here is it is demonic. It transforms itself into looking like one of us, and then it'll put Dominic in like this frozen state, and then it attacks me. And that's what it does to me. Like we had the same experiences with this thing. So, I mean, we've had the deacon out here 3 times, and so then he put in for a priest, and then just before the COVID hit, so now I can't get a because nobody's going to come out. So, I mean, we do. It's a nightly ritual with a holy water and burning the the Santo, sticks and just stuff like that. But after we did it the first night, burning the Santo, sticks, we heard growling, and it was like outside my door, like as if it couldn't come in here, and it was mad. And we heard this growl, and we kept hearing something in the middle of the hallway. And I said, Dominic says it's right there, So I started squirting the holy water, and then it disappeared on me. And I said, where did it go? And he says, I don't see it now. So he can see it more than I can. Like, he has that ability to see things better than I can. But when I was younger, I could do it easier too. But I guess when you get older, it kind of, I don't know, it's like it kind of wears off. But I see it when least expected it. I can feel it. I can feel it and sense it all that more than I can see it. And
so, Nick, can I just, because we're going over the hour, I am so sorry. I like to waffle, I can't help it. Have you now, obviously, because things are lifting slightly, aren't they, over in the States? So are you back out investigating now, or have you got anything coming up, or any radio shows that you're due to go on, or Facebook Lives, etc.?
Well, unfortunately, as it has been for several months, unfortunately, we don't have any investigations planned as a result of COVID-19. I mean, we here in Illinois, we are, no offense, but we have become a little bit more sophisticated with the response of COVID-19. So we're slowly getting back into. I mean, we have experienced an increase, but we've been doing a lot more better. Along with a few other states. But as investigations, we just haven't been able to do anything. Although recently we went to, and this is kind of back to cryptozoology, a few weeks ago, one of my partners, paranormal partners, Tom McNicholas, and I, we drove down to Bray Road, which is located up in Elkhorn, Wisconsin, which is supposedly the home of the Beast of Bray Road. This was my first time ever going to Bray Road. And while we didn't really experience anything there, first off, there was someone who lived right next to the road who had a Bray Road Beast statue, which, oh my God, I gotta admit, that was cool. Now for anyone who wants to go to Bray Road, I just want to advise that unfortunately there's no real area you can actually get out and investigate, because most of the area is private property. So you can only really drive through the road, but there's another area called Kettle Moraine State Park, which is about 20 minutes away from Elkhorn. And I actually spoke with Linda Gottfried, who's written a number of books about the Bray Road Beast. She said that's a better area to investigate because there's trails, it's a park area. And she told me that for years, if not decades, up to the present day, they get reports of both big, hairy dog and ape-like creatures there all the time. So you're also...
You can't talk about Dave like that, Nick, while he's sat here.
I'm not talking bro.
Sorry. Did he say a big thing, not a chihuahua size? Sorry. Sorry, my mistake.
I don't really remember saying that, but okay.
So are you due to go on anymore? Because I know you've been quite busy recently, haven't you, with all the podcasts, live streams, etc. It was hard work to book you in, to be fair, Nick, because you're that in demand at the minute.
Yeah, I mean, being on these shows to me has been kind of like an alternative to these investigations because, again, there's just not much else there's just not many events going on, so it makes it tough for us to go out. So I see all these podcasts, these radio shows that I appear on, including, of course, obviously yours. It definitely is a good alternative to keep my fascination with the paranormal going.
Do you know what I think we should do? I think we should do a mass link-up seance.
Oh, that would be cool. Yeah, I'd be up for that.
Because you can have like loads of people on Zoom, can't you? So I think we should do some sort of mass link-up and do an old-fashioned seance.
Honestly, I haven't really participated in a seance before. Not because I'm not interested. We just don't do them very often. So a lot of people
don't, but it's the old classics and the old favourites that tend to get left out. But let's go back to basics here, peeps. Let's do I think it would be awesome, to be fair, to do like a mass seance. I really do think it would be awesome.
We'll leave that to you then, Gem.
Oh, leave it with me. I'll easy set it up. It's not.
You'll make it all of mine just come over here.
Yeah.
Even though I haven't done it before, you got me.
Yay! Got me first 2 guests already. Sorted.
We'll have to do Canada, America, the UK.
I know people in Canada. I know a few people in the UK. We've got the States sorted, although I'm pretty sure that in the chat room alone there's quite a few people that would want to join in. I can see my lovely friend, everybody, she's over there. My lovely friend Victoria said she'll join in.
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
Yeah, I think it would, and I just wonder if it would work. I wonder if we would get anything coming through, because we're all stuck in our own little environments, and people are always saying about this para-unity. Let's come together then. Let's do something.
You've probably seen me talk about it repeatedly, but I live by para-unity, and I'm actually working on a special project that I don't want to give too much revealing about, but it definitely will revolve around para-unity. I wrote about it a few days ago, but it's going to be awesome. It's something that I'm surprised that no one has ever done before, but we're getting to it though. And if you guys saw the message previously, this is going to represent, not only just para-unity, in other words, this project is to represent, it doesn't matter what, which investigator you are, what group you're a part of, which state, which country. It's going to represent all of us. It's going to be awesome.
Oh, I can't wait.
Watch this space.
Yeah.
And it might be a first ever, this.
Yeah, I want details. I want details, Nick. And and as for the seance, I will get working on that, guys. I'll get a plan set up, and then anybody that is interested, drop me a message on Messenger and we'll get it sorted. And on that note, guys, we have been chatting for an hour and 10 minutes now, and my lovely friend is sat here waiting for me to go to the pub. So we are going to have to draw it to an end, I'm afraid.
I just want to give Sean a shout, because he always comes up with this saying when we're out, is if we're not getting enough activity, he says, I'm going to open a tin of whoop-ass. And that's what he's just put on the poster.
He's going to open an old-fashioned can of whoop-asses, Sean. Go on, son. Well, Nick, Angela, Dave, as always, it has been an absolute pleasure. Nick, I love talking to you, and I'm sure we will talk again.
Thanks, Nick. We'll get you on again, mate.
Thank you, guys. I
love you, Gemma.
Yeah, that was had a lot of fun. So my pleasure.
Oh, can't wait. Everybody watching tonight, thank you so much for joining us. It is an absolute honour and a privilege, as always, to keep coming along every week and just chatting to you all. So cannot wait to speak to you all again next week. Nick, again, thank you so much. Dave, being the boss, hang in there. Good night, everyone.
Have a great night, guys.
Good night.